professional? How can I accelerate my career in this field?
Remember, when we frame things, take the technology out entirely. In engineering, we beat storytelling. We said, don't ever tell me a story. Stories are for people who are fluffy, who don't have any sort of technical acumen, who don't have facts or data on their side. But senior leaders remember stories. And if you
Are there any few strategies or few projects or case studies you can discuss where by implementing something specific you already have seen results in the past?
a lot of companies make is they say we're going to do data science, but they have no data. We're going to do data science, but they don't have access to novel data sets. And experimentation creates really high quality data sets. You should make incremental gains that result in incremental revenue or incremental cost savings.
Your strategy should align with the growth of the company as well.
We're going to reduce our ad budget, but we need to maintain the effectiveness of our advertising. So we need an optimization project. It requires communication skills, very strong communication skills. The ability
Personally talking, I have worked on the campaign effectiveness project and I never viewed in this perspective. Hi and welcome to this episode of Decoding Data Analytics. This show is all about analytics from the perspective of global data experts who are CTOs, authors, analytic leaders, hiring managers and top data professionals. And I'll be your host for the show, Jahanvee Narang, currently working as a data analyst at Lowe's. And for our audience, we have Vin Vasishtha, who is a technical strategy advisor and the founder of V-Square, where he prepares data professionals to partner with senior leaders, stakeholders, customers, and users to deliver high-value projects. In 2014, he was recognized as a data science influencer and has some amazing courses. And hi, Vin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, let's start with our questions. And as a professional, my first question is how an analyst, as a data analyst professional, how can I accelerate my career in this field?
The best accelerators are your soft skills. Everyone focuses on technical capabilities, and those will only take you so far. You can get to the senior level with technical capabilities, but to get anywhere past that requires communication skills, very strong communication skills, the ability to understand the business problem and turn a business problem into a data science problem or a machine learning problem, to connect your business metrics to your model metrics. How does changing something about the model, adding a feature, how does improving a particular model's accuracy or making it cover more classes of behavior, how is that going to impact the business? If you can make those types of connections, you become very valuable because businesses don't understand how they should be using this. They don't know how to articulate the requirements. So any data analyst who can connect with the business, who can make data science, machine learning, even basic analytics more useful to the business, more valuable to the business, your career moves fast so that you don't have to really start in strategy, but you're going to eventually get there. It's very important, though, begin with business acumen, connecting that value back to every initiative and be able.
One thing I really liked what you said is that it's very important to, communicate technical knowledge into an easy format to the business. Because as a technical person, you understand what data can do, but it's very important that your business also understands what they can do. You have to unleash the power and explain that this is the power, use the superpower and unleash within your organization. And that can only happen with communication. That can only happen over time specifically. And one more thing I wanted to understand is how one can, demystify data strategies. You mentioned in your introduction that, you help professionals move into data strategies and upskill their career. But what are few data strategies if you can, just give away in this podcast?
Sure. The purpose of data strategy is to inform decision-making throughout the business. That's the biggest piece that data scientists need to understand, is it's not just for the data team. It isn't just something that senior leadership knows about and the data science team knows about, and that's it. The entire business needs this framework for decision-making. So a data strategy informs prioritization. It's going to inform any sort of decisions about buying tools of it. So we think of data strategy as this massive, we're going to AI, but no, it starts very simply. It starts by getting the entire business on the same page and aligned. moving forward in the same direction. I talk about one of the main metrics for measuring the success of a data strategy is the percentage of the business who can repeat the strategy back to you, that awareness of data strategy, the awareness of AI strategy. The higher percentage who can repeat it back to you, the better adoption is going to be. The more data scientists can be strategy evangelists. Data analysts can be strategy evangelists, simply going.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned is the prioritization, right? So how can, senior leadership can decide, like, there's so many domains being mentioned in an organization where they can work on, but how can they prioritize, like, which one to pick first and
It's
prioritize that?
always that's the purpose of strategy, is to get us into the opportunity discovery process. Businesses already do this. They already have a process for prioritization to figure out what the business should be working on. They already do strategic goal setting and planning. What they don't have in the strategy planning process is someone who's a technical expert. The technical expert can contribute to the opportunity discovery by showing them exactly what you're talking about. Here are the new opportunities to create value, to deliver value, to operate more efficiently or improve productivity. Here are
Yeah.
our opportunities that align with your specific strategic goals. And during that opportunity discovery process, senior leadership now can say, okay, these are what align with our most, the top level strategic goals.
Got it. But since you mentioned that strategy planning, that strategy can take up to a longer time period as well, and it can be short term as well. So
Mhm.
as a leader, what one should prefer, a short term gain or a long term perspective? Because with short term gain, maybe quick analysis can help them make decisions, which would be very the turnaround time would be very small. It would be very quick, and they can make quicker decisions. But to build a data science model can take up to 4 to 5 months with all the deployment, everything in process. So which process organization should go for?
You want to look at long-term projects, but you want to look at them differently. You
Mm.
should make incremental gains that result in incremental revenue or incremental cost savings. And so a delivery cadence of every 2 to 4 weeks is perfect. Break down these big initiatives into smaller chunks and make sure that each one of those deliverables, number one, you're setting up a track record of success, but number two, you are delivering every 2 weeks or every month. And so those long-term initiatives they're not going to be questioned. No one is going to say, let's cut this, because well, it's already delivering revenue. And those are the
Yeah.
types of opportunities that you want to go after, where there is a long-term machine learning model that you are developing and that you're building, but you are delivering incrementally. Because if you think about the life cycle, we begin with data. We almost never have enough data to truly build a machine learning model from the very beginning. So we need to gather data, improve our access to data, and we can immediately, as soon as we start gathering that data, we can just deliver it to users. It doesn't have to be anything fancy or a massive model. We can just deliver the new
Yeah.
data in better reports, improved reports, give them greater visibility into that part of the day, of that part of the business, that part of what decisions they need to make, and what are the KPIs and metrics they really should be looking at. And so that could be a 2 to 3 week initiative where we are now delivering value 3 weeks in, and there's a measurable impact.
Yeah.
And then we begin using more advanced models, and we're delivering that next level of value. And so 6 weeks in, we've now delivered twice.
Yeah.
We've delivered initial value. Now we've improved value. And so going on and doing another 4 to 6 weeks on top of that to finish out the model, now it makes sense because we've already made the company money or saved the company money.
Yeah, that does make sense. Like, first, one should focus on clearing the small goals with taking an incremental steps toward the longer vision.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. But what are the few steps one can take to connect the dots? Because you said that the communication is a major factor, right? Now,
Mhm.
how can one communicate from a technical model perspective, or a machine learning model, or a data science project, or any project which as a technical person can see the potential in? How can they convey to their senior leadership or the leader that, this is something you should invest in, or this is something you should look out?
Never talk about the technology. No
uh,
one's ever bought a machine learning model, ever. No one buys those. That's really what we have to remember is our customers don't care what technology we use to deliver them value. They couldn't care less. If it works, they don't care. Most
yeah.
people who are using any form of data science or machine learning don't even know they are. If you ask them, if you survey them, a little over half of people will say, no, we don't use AI, or we only use a very small, tiny amount of AI. And then when you remind them which products actually use data science and machine learning under the covers, they go, oh, yeah, no, actually, we do use that quite a bit. It's interesting. That's really what we need to remember. When we frame things, take the technology out entirely. In engineering, we beat storytelling. We say, don't ever tell me a story.
Yeah.
Stories are for people who are fluffy, who don't have any sort of technical acumen, who don't have facts or data on their side. But senior leaders remember stories. And if you tell them the story about how this is going to create value, if you tell them the story of how you've done an initiative similar to this and it created value, if you talk about the one data point that changed everything and resulted in tangible value, the numbers that you talk about are the problem statement, you want to define it, and then the solution. What was the impact? What was the business outcome? You want to define that in using metrics, using solid numbers. Everything else, don't talk about the data, don't talk about the technology, don't talk about the model. Just tell a quick story and bring it into about 2 to 3 minutes. You don't have as much attention in senior leadership as you think you do. They will sit there for 10 minutes, but you have lost them after about 2.
Yeah.
So talk for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. So one should just focus on the story, and that should be very quick and crisp within 1 minute. That will create on their business, how exactly their business will be impacted and will be grown in next, few months or few years. So that should be the focus, right?
And talk about it incrementally, just like we talked about in the last question.
Yeah.
Talk about how you can deliver incrementally. Don't talk about the big goal. Don't talk about the technology. It's that incremental approach. Let them know this isn't something that they're going to have to wait forever to see returns out of.
Yeah, completely. That completely makes sense. I guess that's the way to go about to a senior leadership, with nice little bombs in the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But as a professional, how can I know, or how can I identify which projects are something which can actually bring the value? I'm just a technical person. I can't, predict the future very, very, precisely that, okay, this much revenue the business can bring. Are there any few strategies or few, projects or case studies you can, discuss, where by implementing something specific, you already have seen results in the past?
I use a basic framework. I have underperform, expected, outperform. So anytime that I am talking about the scope of opportunity, I'm going to say I have this range. Here's what we're expecting, this much value. Here is, at the worst case, if this really underperforms, here's where I expect us to be. If we outperform, here is the top end. Here is the true potential for this project. I always make sure that underperform. There's no way I'm going to be underperforming. But even if I did, underperform would still justify the initial investment. Estimating the scope of an opportunity, you want to make sure for things that are productivity improving, that there would be not only a savings. Yes, now we have more hours, but how does that savings translate into revenue? How does it translate into value creation? Because if I'm improving productivity, I should be making space for something else. So now I'm saying we're going to save these people 4 hours a day or 2 hours per day, times this many employees doing the task, times whatever it is that they cost per hour. Here's the amount of savings that we're going to generate. And with those hours, they will now be able to increase their service level to create. And now you're talking about the additional value that they possibly could be creating and delivering to customers. And so I've gone away from the technical solution to talking about this range and talking about not just I'm going to save people hours, but what's the value? Who cares? I'm saving these people 8 hours. Tell me what that means to me. And this is important for data
Yeah.
scientists and analysts to go a little bit deeper into the problem space. This is what, when I talk about defining the problem space, this is really what I'm going at, is getting to the real value. Just because you save people time doesn't mean they can then use that time to generate more value.
Yeah. So basically, what one can understand is your strategy should align with the growth of the company as well. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you save 2 hours or 4 hours. If it doesn't align with the strategy or the future vision of the company, the time saved doesn't quantify anywhere, right?
Yep. It's fairly meaningless. And that's where a lot of data science teams get into trouble, because they do things because the technology enables it. It
Hmm.
sounds interesting, but they're not
Yeah.
focused on value creating metrics. They're just focused on more surface level metrics. And until you get to the point where you connect business metrics with model metrics, there's just no, and that's why the problem space exploration, truly understanding what you're delivering and the value of it. What is this going to do? What changes are going to be made? What does that mean when it comes to the constraints around your solution? If you don't understand those, you impact the surface level metric, but you don't return any value to the business.
You talked about the value level metric. What exactly is value level metric? Can you define that?
Something that connects to profitability, top and bottom line on a company's balance sheet. Will it preserve margins? Will
Mhm.
it increase revenue? Will it
Yeah.
increase productivity in the business in such a way that we can increase our service levels around a core growth goal? And those are your value creation metrics. And you're going to have tons of KPIs between you and the balance sheet. But what you
Yeah.
always want to be able to do is talk about that top level KPI for an organization. Like if it's marketing, it could be campaign effectiveness, it could be customer lifetime value, it could be retention or churn, because those have a connection, direct connection at
Yeah.
the C level's mind to a particular part of their strategy. We need to preserve margins. Therefore, we need to reduce costs around this particular activity. We're going to reduce our ad budget, but we need to maintain the effectiveness of our advertising. So we need an optimization project. And that's your, campaign effectiveness. Your
Yeah.
campaign now needs to become more effective. So with the same campaign, instead of getting a 3% conversion rate, we need to get 7, because we're running fewer campaigns. So how do we do that? And that's the connection between that value metric, is we need campaigns to be more effective. That's our maintaining revenue, maintaining the amount of money that's coming in based on the marketing that we're doing. And so now we go one back. That means campaign effectiveness. How do we measure campaign effectiveness? Well, let's say it's conversion from I saw an ad, I clicked on the ad, to I actually bought something from you. Used to be 3%. But now, since we've had this reduction in budget, in order to maintain the effectiveness at the same levels with the lower budget, now we need to increase that conversion rate. You see how I'm just kind of bouncing down. And now, okay, so what's behind conversion rate? What causes people to convert? Can we figure out those elements and serve that data to marketing to help them understand which campaigns should they be investing in now that they
Mm.
can't invest in as many campaigns? Which ones have the highest correlation? Which features in a campaign correlate most best as possible? Best guess is usually where we start, and then we continuously improve that. And so model metrics to business metrics. If I've been able to improve with data campaign effectiveness from 3% to 4%, what is, if I improve the data that I'm delivering, what is the potential impact? Because if it's 0.5%, probably not worth doing that initiative. Wait until you can find something that'll do 1, 2, 3 more percent, instead of optimizing that last initiative to try to squeeze another 0.5% out of it. Why? There's a better initiative to do. And that's the connection between business metrics and model metrics, is understanding what the impact on that KPI that they care about. And you're never going to have to sell that. If you can say, I'm trying to do something that's going to improve your campaign effectiveness by this percent, if you're talking to mid-level managers, director level, management level, they'll go, yeah, okay, that's, I am evaluated based on that metric this year. So if you're going to help me improve that, I get it. There's no selling the value proposition. You're essentially saying, I am delivering you something and I'm connecting it to what you care about.
Completely. Like personally talking, I have worked on the campaign effectiveness project and never viewed in this perspective. For me, it was just comparing the test group to control group and seeing what was the conversion rate, as you said. Yeah, but now when you mention that how to relate business metrics to the value driven metrics, it really does make sense. And for a longer time, that's what the senior leadership are interested in. That's what your managers are interested in. And that's what the companies are looking at the end of the day. So yeah,
Yep.
that was completely mind blowing and amazing to, just break down everything in detail. That was totally amazing. Thank you for that. Moving to our next question, there are so many startups growing in India, US, all over the globe, right? How can they use data to gain competitive advantage and, grow in their organization?
First thing to realize is the majority of companies can't get consistent models to production. And that puts any capabilities that you can't deliver with software that require data and advanced models. There's an opportunity because the majority of vendors won't be able to deliver a solution that requires a model. And so the more complex the problem that you're tackling, the more likely it is that data science and machine learning are the only way to tackle it. The other huge opportunity is if you can generate novel data sets, you have a data product which is exceptionally valuable because generic data is not a competitive advantage. It is these unique data sets. If you have access to a process or to some sort of system, which most companies, most individuals can't get access to, if you can access one of those systems, gather data from it, especially high quality data, and serve inference and analytics, you have a business model and a very good business model. Because the majority of companies, number one, won't be able to duplicate the data set, and then back to delivering models to production, delivering any sort of data products to customers and users. They simply can't do that. And so you have two different, what I call moats, which will protect you from competitors, quickly copying what it is that you do and taking business away from you.
Yeah. But just want to add a follow-up question. Most of the companies, which are just starting out, might not have enough data or might not be aware of, what kind of data they can use. So, what would be like few third-party data which they can source out to, leverage that capability?
You can't. If you can get third-party data, so can everyone else.
Okay.
Third-party data is not a competitive advantage. If I can buy my way to your data set, then I can just duplicate you. And as a bigger business, I can probably duplicate you better. You have to find novel ground. And this is the mistake that a lot of companies make, is they say we're going to do data science, but they have no data. We're going to do data science, but they don't have access to novel data sets. And experimentation creates really high quality data sets. So the experimentation you were talking about in the marketing example, where you were sampling, breaking people into specific segments, especially specific customer segments, granular customer segments, and beginning to experiment, introduce treatments, measuring outcomes, doing that rigorous experimentation, that creates data. Those are high quality data sets. And so if you have access to a system, and it's any system, it can be a marketplace, it can be social media, people creating content, sharing content, people buying products on a marketplace or some sort of an exchange. Any of those create novel data sets that the majority of other companies simply do not have access to. And so that in and of itself is an advantage. But when you start experimenting with the platform, when you start experimenting on how customers behave or how the marketplace behaves, or even how machinery behaves for predictive maintenance, if you have access to a factory floor, you have access to a novel data set because few companies do. You can, when I talk about incremental improvement, I have data, I'm going to introduce it to the maintenance workflow. I'm going to give you this data that I have. And it's a very basic analysis. And I'm going to see, does this change anything? Did I improve the effectiveness of your maintenance program? Did I reduce the costs? Did I reduce downtime? Did I reduce something that the business cares about? And I'm going to keep giving you data until I do. And then I have experimental data. I've figured out what data points, if I give them to a person, improve whatever KPI. And now I can do more advanced models because that data set that I'm generating through experimentation, no
Yeah.
one else has that. Now I
Yeah.
have something novel that can be sold.
Yeah. Now use this experimentation data and the novel data to basically get the competitive advantage.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's that
that's
experimentation because those generate novel data sets. Most people are thinking experimentation, I'm doing it to build the model. No, you can just build data. That data set is gold because think about the machine learning model that you can train on experimental data. It is so much more accurate based on experimental data than it is based on just observational study data that's randomly gathered or even that's gathered structurally with good provenance and metadata. It is still not as high quality because there's a whole lot of noise in there. You don't really understand what features are important. You don't have any sort of validation for the model outside of it fits the data. And so experimental data is so valuable.
yeah, completely. We talked about how one can do this, but that comes to the situation where we have to talk to a senior leadership as well. So how can one maintain stakeholder management or client relationship in a good format that they can go and approach them with these ideas and these approaches? Like how to do that? I remember I was going through your LinkedIn profile, and you have mentioned that one of the key thing you advise on is stakeholder management and client relationship. So just want to understand that as well.
It starts unsustainably. And I want to make this clear. You can't keep doing this approach, but this is how you begin. You go to stakeholders and you understand them. Just talk to them. What is your biggest problem? What is the thing that you hate the most? What is your largest pain point? Is there something that annoys you so badly that if I gave you a solution to it, you might consider hugging me? Is there something that really is that painful? Because that's what they'll adopt. They'll almost immediately adopt a solution because there's no friction there. They don't have a competing solution. And that's really the critical piece to look for very early on. If there's a competing solution and they don't have trust in the data organization, they don't have a track record of success to look at for data products to understand why this is valuable or even is this valuable to me, then it's really impossible to get anything more complex done. And that's unsustainable. You can't keep doing that again and again, especially as you scale use cases. And so this is just the beginning of it. And part of what comes next after you've delivered some solutions, you built a coalition, there are more than just you saying that these solutions are valuable. You have a track record of success and some people who are also advocates for you. Then you can start the data literacy piece and the model literacy so that users can come to you, give them a framework to come to you with their problems. And you're also getting credibility to get into senior leadership, get into the strategy planning process, like I talked about, so that now every initiative is guided by strategy, where senior leadership with C-level has said, this is why we use data and analytics and machine learning. Here are the ways those align with value creation. And when that gets to the front line, now everyone says, okay, so this project could use data science and it aligns with our strategic goal. And now you have this partnership that's top down, bottom up. And you're no longer the person driving the car because you're in the worst spot to do it. You start that way, but if you try to maintain that process, it just becomes unsustainable. And so we have to hand off and give the people that should be doing these jobs the tools, the knowledge, the training, the support that they need in order to do it themselves.
Yeah, that's something which is really interesting. You mentioned data literacy. Can you just simplify that word?
Data literacy means I, as a user, understand the potential of data to be introduced to my workflow. How could I use data? And so that's step one. It's understanding how to use data. Step two in data literacy is understanding how to use self-service tools. Because if the data science team is doing just basic requests all day and handling ad hoc requests, they can't do the kind of projects that I'm talking about. So self-service tools are critical. And so number one, it's the ability to select your own tools. And again, strategy plays a huge role in this because one part of the company selecting a tool is probably going to impact a lot of other parts of the company. And so they need to make a decision that aligns with all the needs across the entire business instead of just theirs. And so that's the second part of data literacy, is understanding how to pick tools and then implement them, use them themselves, handle their own use cases. And the third part of data literacy is understanding reliability requirements. Because if you look at software has functional requirements. Here are the exact things I need the software to do. Models don't work that way. Models are far more broadly functional, but they function at each particular use case, each particular requirement at a level of reliability. They don't always work 100% of the time. In some use cases, they'll work 70% of the time. In others, 93% of the time. And users don't know how to express reliability requirements. And so that's the third piece of data literacy. I call that model literacy, where they can say, I just need data. My question is, what happened? If your question is what happened, that's self-service. You can handle that yourself. All you need is data. Even if you want a more complex understanding of what happened, I want to understand what isn't obvious about the data. And you can use things like clustering and regression. And self-service tools are amazing at this. They let users understand the data and the complex patterns hidden within data. But as soon as I want to know why it happened. I want to predict what will happen next. I want to understand my options. What could I do? What opportunities are there? What evaluation of options? If I have 4 options, which ones are the best? Or if I want to understand why a failure happened. You're predictive, prescriptive, and diagnostic. Now, that's a data science. That's where you go to, okay, dear data scientists, this is an initiative I need you to do. I shouldn't do this with self-service tools. And if they don't understand how to really enunciate their requirements and their needs, you don't have a chance. And so it's those 3 tiers that gets data literacy and model literacy to the point where organizations become more self-sufficient and they can surface requirements, surface opportunities, and present them back to the data team and product management in a way that we can prioritize and decide how to move forward.
That's something amazing. Like I've read about data literacy, but never in this easy format, I was always confused about how exactly this thing works. I mean, I know how exactly the underlying value is, but the way you present it is something which is really amazing. And I hope our viewers also understand that in a very easy to learn format. Since we are moving to the end, this would be my last question. I won't keep you so long now. You've been in this industry for about more than 15 years now. How do you upskill yourself? What kind of resources you use to, read and keep yourself up to date in this era?
To do in your career is choose proven approaches. You want to read use cases at companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, IBM, Amazon, Netflix, Uber is another great one, on and on. But look at companies who are succeeding, putting machine learning into production. Read their engineering blogs, read their data science and machine learning blogs, follow the people that are most actively writing for them. Those are all they're going to help guide you to what actually works and what's proven technology that you can now take and implement in your own business.
Wow, that's something really amazing. And also you can check out Vin YouTube channel as well for some amazing resources. And that's about it. Thank you so much, Vin, for coming in and taking time for this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day ahead.
Well, if you like the podcast, do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more episodes.